And now, from God's Unchanging Word Studios in New Orleans, we are pleased to bring you news, nuggets, and insights with today's host, Tom Carey.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to God's Unchanging Word, another edition for our news, nuggets, and insights. And today is Friday, April 23rd, 2021, and we are midway through to the March to Pentecost. We'll talk about that at the end of the program today. We've got a really busy program, very, very important. In fact, it is so important, we pulled out, you can't make this stuff up because we need it all the time we can. We're going to begin with one of the most important stories of the time we live in today. History repeating itself. Will we have another civil war? I'm going to talk about that today. Then we're going to continue with World Watch. Today we're going to focus on Russia and then the global unrest. So when we get into this civil war, we're going to talk about the global unrest, tie that into the coming potential civil war and the second seal of Revelation. So you want to make sure you stick around to the end of the program. Don't go anywhere today. So let's begin with this. Whether you realize it or not, we're moving closer to hurricane season. Over in the Philippines already, they've got the first hurricane of the season in April and 190 mile an hour winds with 230 mile gusts. Got a little short, about a 1 minute news piece on that. Let's play that video.
Super Typhoon Suragi is now the most intense typhoon on record for April. In fact, it's one of the strongest ever for any time of year. So far, pressure has dropped to at least 888 millibars, and sustained winds have reached 190 miles per hour. Gusts have reached 230. Now, fortunately, the strongest winds from this monster of a storm will track east of the Philippines. Still, this area, especially the eastern islands, will likely get hit hard. And this is likely going to remain a super typhoon right through the weekend. As you can see, we're watching for dangerous waves, very strong winds, storm surge, coastal flooding, and heavy rain.
I brought that out because the time you get this video on Friday, that hurricane pretty much made its turn and gone, and God protected the Philippines. But I wanted to bring that into everyone's attention as we move closer and closer to the hurricane season this year, after what we had after 2019, 20, and 21, that we pray that God will help protect the country this year, because that's their first hurricane going into it. We can imagine what could happen over here. All right, let's move on now. Amazon rolls out a hand scanner. I don't know if you've seen this yet. A lot of people in the churches are talking about it, the potential mark of the beast, 666. And it's pretty simple. Amazon has created a new way for customers to make purchases with their palm. The new hand recognition technology, Amazon One, is currently available in 2 of its Amazon's Go stores located in Seattle, Washington. By holding their palm above the device, patrons can enter secure areas and pay for items without cash or credit. I don't know if you've seen that yet. It reminds me of Star Trek. Y'all remember Star Trek? They used to wave their hand over the little beam and it would recognize them. Well, you're now in the era of Star Trek. People are talking about this being the mark of the beast. Is it the mark of the beast? Well, I don't know. It doesn't appear to be fitting all the bill, but it seems to have some things that moves us closer and closer to it. It is the world's largest online retailer now, is working on a way to have customers pay and swipe their hand. Amazon wants to do it by linking credit card information to your palm print. According to the Wall Street Journal, plans are in the beginning phase, and the company has reportedly begun working with Visa, and the project has also been discussed with MasterCard, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo, some of the biggest retailer credit companies in the world. Being able to accept this, just walk in, swipe your hand, and they're gone, and it goes with a bill every single month. Got a little video piece on this too. Take a look at this.
This is Zoe. Just like you, she uses lots of different cards and IDs to get through her day. What if all Zoe needed was herself? Introducing Amazon One, a free service that lets you use your palm to quickly pay for things, gain access, earn rewards, and more. Let's say you're grabbing your favorite coffee beverage, or heading into the office, or checking out. Just hover your palm and you're on your way. It's as easy as that. Sign up is free and takes less than a minute. All you need is a credit card, your phone number, and your palm. That's it. Since your palm is unique and can't be lost or misplaced, you can get things done quickly and securely. And with more experiences on the way, Amazon One will help you get even more done, simply by being you. Now, Zoe has more time to do what she loves, indoor skydiving. Enter, identify, and pay with Amazon One.
Well, you can see where it can move closer and closer, that if you don't have the mark or whatever it is that it is to be able to buy or sell, you won't be able to participate. Of course, that isn't the number 666, but we'll see what's coming down the road. But anyway, what will happen is, oh, I'm sorry, I left my credit card, my wallet home, or the check's in the mail. Just grab the guy's hand, stick it over the light, and there you go. You're done. All righty. Is it the mark of the beast? Look at Revelation 13, 1 and 2. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems in its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the bear in the mouth, and the lion in his mouth, and the dragon to give power, and his throne and great authority. Now that's the first beast. In the same chapter now, there's a second beast. Picks up the story in verse 11. This is where we get into the beast of buying and selling. And it also causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or on the forehead, and so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark that is the name of the beast and the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. The one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number of the man is the number 666. So somewhere if the palm print would be the mark of the beast, it'd have to be tied into some person or name that comes to what Revelation 13 describes as 666. For that man or that being or that monster beast to come into play. So we're going to keep watching, because I think there's going to be a lot more to this before God comes back, and we'll know before it's time who the mark and what the mark of the beast is actually going to be. Last week we talked about the policy changes that was coming, about the changes that go beyond the Democrat and Republican, and we're talking about that again today, just briefly though. The current changes are reshaping the landscape of the nations around the globe. I'm hoping to, by next week, if not next week, the week after, talk about the first 100 days of this administration. Because I got to tell you something, I've never seen, even in history that I've studied, anything has changed an entire world landscape as fast as this president has done. Unbelievable what we're beginning to see. It has right now we're in the literal changing of the Constitution. So now, let's talk about that today. Biden creating the Supreme Court Reform Commission. Remember we talked about that last week? In his order, the President Biden signed an executive order to create a commission of 36 legal experts to conduct a 100-day study on the Supreme Court reform, including expanding the court size. Now, we told you last week, so you can go back and you can look at last week, and we said this is all nonsense, it's a smokescreen, and that all of this is just laying the groundwork to do what they already wanted to do. Within 2 days of this, things began to change. Chuck Schumer said, and he said this was coming back in the election of Georgia, we take Georgia, then we change the world. All right, the Democrats introduced a bill to expand Supreme Court from 9 to 13 judges. 2 days after Biden signs the executive order to put a committee together of 36 people to study this. Just 2 days later, they put this out there that they're going to introduce the bill to expand the Supreme Court. Now, this was done for a reason. They knew it wouldn't get through, because nobody does this in the Democratic Party without everybody talking to one another and getting the consensus from the people at the top. This was thrown out there to begin to put it into the public's mindset that this is probably going to happen, and they get a feedback. It's a trial. Throw it out there while everything else is going on. In the meantime, Nancy Pelosi says, no, I'm not going to bring that bill up. We're going to wait and see what this commission. So what they're doing is throwing everything out there saying that this is where it's going to go, but they're going to stand on the righteousness of, nope, we're just going to research this to do the right thing. Really. Again, it's a smokescreen. This is what they're going to, and this is what they want to introduce. Within just days of the President Biden forming his 36-member panel, the research of the Supreme Court, the congressional Democrats will introduce the legislation Thursday, that was last Thursday, to the Supreme Court for 9 to 13 judges joining the progressive activists pushing to transform the court. And that is exactly what they're doing. And they said they're going to do it way back before the election in Georgia for those 2 Senate houses. This man, he's a congressman. I thought I had his name. I guess I don't. The Supreme Court is hostile to society, he says, and it no longer represents the American people. Have you seen that? How is it that people in government can do and say whatever they want to do and there's no recourse or no repercussions for what they do? They can flat out sit in their chairs and lie to you and never be held accountable. Can't be sued for what they say or whose people's lives they wreck when they're up there. At the same time now, D.C. statehood being approved by the Demo to lead in a committee. The House Committee votes to approve the D.C. statehood as Democrats denounce disenfranchisement of the D.C. 700,000 residents. Now, this is a way of putting in 2 more Senate seats into Congress to continue to change the voting pattern so that once you got power, you have to change the laws to stay in power. And that's what's going on right now. So the House Oversight and Reform Committee approved a bill that would make Washington, D.C. the country's 51st state. Now, I find this quite interesting, is that God brought us to 50 states. 50 states is very representative of freedom. It's like a jubilee. And so all those years that we've had those 50 states now, since what, 1950s, 40s? I don't remember exactly when that was. 50 states. So when we reached that state, everything was pretty well stable, and that's the way it stayed. Once you move off to 50, you start in something a different ballgame. So that's what you're looking at here. So H.1 51 is expected to pass a full House vote along party lines next week. Now, it still has to go through the Senate, so it doesn't mean it's done by any means. Fortunately, it has to pass the 60 vote. It can't be rammed through with just 51 votes. So, but the legislation almost certainly will be doomed in Senate where it would need 60 votes to pass. But listen, what they do here, they know things are not going to pass the first time out. What they have to do is keep introducing it till it becomes acceptable in people's minds. And that's what's going on here. And that's why they're doing what they're doing with the Supreme Court. If it doesn't make it this time, it'll make it next time. They did that with the gay rights issue and the marriage laws. Look where that got and how fast that moved once it became accepted in America. All right, now, let's get to something that's really, really important here, because this is going to affect every man, woman, and child in America, and the fruits of this is going to carry on around the world. History repeating itself, heating up for another civil war. Are we heating up for another civil war? I want to talk about that today. We know for sure spiritually, we've been talking about that, how God talked about at the end time, Satan is going to go after the elect in this final ultimate battle of God's people versus Satan's people, the spiritual civil war that's going to take everyone on this planet. But is there also coming another physical civil war? You know, for a number of years I said, well, I don't think that's really going to happen. It looked like they had the potential to, but I'll tell you now, the way things are going, and as fast as they're moving, there is a real serious chance that we will have pockets of civil war around this nation. Okay, now, before I actually get into the story, I want to lay the foundation for what's going on here. This is really, really important. So I want everyone to pay attention and share this with everybody. Show your friends, your family, people in the church or out of the church, because this is going to affect everybody before this is all done. To understand what is going on and not to get caught up in it or to become a victim of it. So what's going to happen as you begin to hear stories in the news media, they're going to play these stories up depending if you're on the left or on the right. And there's enough information out there that's going to rile everyone up. So you need to understand that. I mean, this is going to begin to create animosity among friends, among loved ones, family members. We're going to talk about that part of it when we get into the nuggets today. So bear with me on this and let's get through this. What are we looking at? All right, so if we don't look at it from the biblical point of view, from God's mindset, for example, God took Ezekiel one day and he lifted him up by the lock of his hair, it says, and he carried him over Jerusalem. And he gave a chance for Ezekiel to see from God's eyes, from God's point of view, from his mindset, what God sees looking down on Jerusalem in ancient Israel. So what God is doing for us today through his scriptures, he's recorded for us the end from the beginning so that we can look at what happens today, not from our emotion, not from the news, not from the media, not from the lies, but from God's point of view, what is taking place. All right, here's where it starts. Let's go back to Genesis. By one man, sin entered into the world. So what does that mean? Well, that means that all the sin from that time till now, it came in because that doorway was open for Satan to come into this world. We know that it is only through Christ, and I don't have to go into that. It says, by one man also came salvation, which is Jesus Christ. What's my point? My point is, once you bear a sin, sometimes the consequences of that sin carries on. Well, you might think that's unfair. Well, I'm sorry, maybe you feel that way, but that's the way it is. When God says sin carries on to the third and fourth generation. Isn't it amazing, before God comes back, he talks about he carries on for 4 generations. So we're looking at a period of time now where there's been a sin that came in that just carries on. If you can't see it in spiritual terms, how about physical terms? How about a mother who abuses her body with drugs and she's pregnant and the child grows up with an addiction? See what I mean? We can connect physical, we can't seem to connect spiritual. All right, let me give you another example right here. King David's sin with Bathsheba. Well, pretty much everybody knows the story, what took place there. So when Bathsheba conceived, David kills Uriah, the Hittite, but then God takes the baby, right? And the baby dies. Well, God eventually forgives King David. David's going to sit on a throne. He's going to be there ruling and judging. God called him a man after his own heart. But something else took place. When that sin was opened up, that doorway was allowed for Satan to come in, what else happened? Right here. Now, therefore, the sword will never depart from your house, God told him, because you had despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own. All right, so I hope I made my point. In other words, certain sins that can be forgiven personally, nationally, sometimes incur consequences that Satan will use and never goes away. All right, you with me? Now we're ready to go to today. Yes, my dear, all white people are racist. Now, this is coming from a writer, very popular writer in our time. She calls herself the anti-racist writer. She's against racism. Really. Now, why am I bringing this in? If I brought you this last year, because you see, this is from June 2020, it would have seemed like an anomaly out there if somebody feels that way. But in less than a year now, this has become the mainstream narrative of the left. Pretty much most of the left feels this way. So where did this come from? Of course, the Civil War. Of course, the beginning of the Constitution of the United States. When we established this nation, they knew, and they wrote it, God gave them everything they needed. All men are created equal. But there were some who did not believe that. And the nation, while they wrote it, they gave way not to live it completely. You see where I'm coming from? So because of that, by the time of Abraham Lincoln, It was such a huge mess with slavery that the nation went into a civil war. That has never been resolved spiritually. Satan was going to use that all the way through to the return of Jesus Christ, and you're beginning to see the escalation today. Why is he doing that? Because if you understand who the nations are, you understand those coming in as the white race, or the race that descended from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who were brought into the United States. Jesus Christ expanded that. It's not according to race anymore. It's according to grace. We're all God's family. Doesn't matter what color you are. But here we are today, and the issue, whether you agree with it or not, this issue is not going away. It's only going to get worse. Right? You understand where I'm coming from? So how is it being portrayed today and being accepted today by the majority of this nation? This is teaching our youth this. It says, first we learn what racism is. This is directly from her in her writings. First we learn what racism is and what it is not. She says, I need white people to understand that all white people are racist. In other words, you're born that way. You can't help it. In fact, in the writings, it's a long piece of writing in the booklet she put out there. It says you can't help it if you're born that way. That's just the way it is. She said, admit it, and then move on to the business of repairing and healing the country. We can't do it without you. Yes, dears, all white people are racist. All of them. Wow, okay. That's what she says. But look what else she goes on to say. White people admitting they are racist is necessary for individuals desiring to do something right now. If you can't do that, I can't rock with you. I can't walk with you. I can't talk with you. I can't help you, and I damn sure can't trust you. Wow. She's the anti-racism, a voice of anti-racism. In other words, if you can't admit that this is the way it is, then we got nothing to talk about. That's the mindset of what's being permeated in the country right now, whether you realize it or not. You need to understand something else. This is not going to get any better. When you see things that's beginning to take place, it's going to get worse. Take a look at this. Maxine Waters tells Minnesota to BLM protesters to get more confrontational one day after the violent anti-police clashes erupts across the United States. You couldn't get away with the rhetoric that's being gotten away with right now just a few years ago. Now, they was accepting certain things, but now we got to stay on the street, Waters said, encouraging protesters to ignore the night's curfew. Now you have a U.S. representative flying into this state. By the way, she flew in, she asked for double security. They want to defund the police, but she got double security to fly in, encouraging them to become more aggressive if they don't get the answer they're looking for and to break the law. This is a U.S. congressperson doing this. She told the demonstrators to stay on the street and become more confrontational if the former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is acquitted of killing resident George Floyd. I haven't listened to the court thing. Believe it or not, this was the one thing I think most everybody in society agreed that this was horrible what happened. But it doesn't matter what's going on. I got a video here. This is from the judge. This is from the judge who's trying the case. Let's play the video. It's only about 2 minutes long.
But my phone gives me alerts on things that just happened. You can't avoid it. And it is so pervasive that it is, I just don't know how this jury, it can really be said to be that they are free from the taint of this. And now that we have U.S. representatives threatening acts of violence in relation to this specific case, it's mind-boggling to me, Judge. The storylines of the particular shows that were brought to my attention. So I'm making it to note the record at this particular point, and I can certainly supplement them.
Yeah, you can supplement the record with whatever media reports. I'm aware of the media reports. I'm aware that Congresswoman Waters was talking specifically about this trial and about the unacceptability of anything less than a murder conviction, and talk about being confrontational, but you can submit the press articles about that. This goes back to what I've been saying from the beginning. I wish elected officials would stop talking about this case, especially in a manner that is disrespectful to the rule of law and to the judicial branch and our function. I think if they want to give their opinions, they should do so in a respectful and in a manner that is consistent with their oath to the Constitution, to respect a co-equal branch of government. Their failure to do so, I think, is abhorrent. Well, I'll give you that Congresswoman Waters may have given you something on appeal that may result in this whole trial being overturned.
Even the judge says that this kind of comment may give them what they need if it gets a conviction of murder to overturn and appeal it and have another court case. She went in on Saturday night, because after the days and days and days of the protest was starting to settle down a little bit, it needed to be flared back up again for this week. And that's what she did. She went back out there to flare it up. It's just throwing fire into a very volatile situation. This is the headlines: inciting violence, throwing gasoline on the fire. She says, we're looking for a guilty verdict, she says, and if we don't get it, we've got to get more confrontational. In other words, if he's not found guilty of murder, we're going to get more confrontational. What does that mean? Well, when you talk to a certain person, what does it mean if they're on the street? So isn't that a naked attempt to intimidate the jury? Suppose you're at home and you hear this and you don't agree with the guilty verdict, or you're the one person who said, look, I'm not totally convinced. I can see it, but I'm not totally convinced. What do you think is going to happen? What they do see is happening is that just last week, one of the witnesses who was there, he was in support of the defense. They found his address. They went to the home and they took pig's blood and threw it all over the front of their house. Intimidation. So suppose you're a juror and you're one who can't vote guilty. I don't know what they're going to vote. I have no idea what they're going to vote. But knowing that they're saying this and the mobs are out in the street, what do you think you're going to feel? All right? That's against the law, what's going on. But it doesn't matter. That's what they're doing. All right? So if you were that juror, does that not going to sway your thought on what you're going to do? What about your family? Mike Bergen, representative, says telling rioters who have burned buildings, looted stores, and assaulted journalists to get more confrontational is incredibly irresponsible. So what I'm trying to point out to you is that things are not getting better. They're becoming more acceptable to become more violent. In fact, there are many people, and I was going to bring in the future, I just didn't want this to go off the rail today. They're showing the people that everything that's happening even now, the looting in the stores of the Dollar Tree, in the shoe store. So we agree with all of that, and that's not enough. They said if everybody looted every store in America, that's not enough reparations for all we've been through. And that's being accepted. That's what's going on right now. So I'm telling you this now because you need to understand that this is not going to go away. That you need to get your mindset out of what's going on and into God's protection and His wisdom and understanding for you and your family to be able to get you through this. So now, let's carry it into the police department. The number of people shot to death by police officers in the United States from 2017 to 2021. The narrative is that it seemed like they're only out killing the certain race or black race. That's what they're being told that's out there. And again, it's not a correct narrative, it's a false narrative. Since this is from the statistics of the government themselves. The police have fatally shot 22 children aged 16 and under since 2015. That's according to the records. Sadly, the trend of fatal police shootings in the United States, though, seems to only be increasing, with 213 civilians being shot, 30 of whom are black for the first 3 months of 2021. So I'm going to bring that chart up. I'm going to get it a little bit bigger so you can see that. This is by the chart by year across the bottom. You see it's 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So let me bring it up so we can get a little bit of better idea what you're looking at. So this same chart by the Statistic Research Department, this is for the federal government, of the shootings and the murders over the last 5 years there, even up until today. Every year, 2017, 457 white, 223 black. You can see 2018, 2019, 2020, and here in 2021 as of mid-March or the end of March. Now those are the fatal shootings that's actually on record across the nation. It's interesting that this is not being brought out. But anyway, that's the way it actually is across our country according to the statistics. Something else that's not being brought out. So I want to bring this out today to show you the hypocrisy of what's going on. Chicago sees another spike in shootings. This is in the first 3 months of the year since 2017. This year, okay, we have already 218 more people shot in Chicago than 2020. That's a total of people shot in Chicago alone. Chicago alone. 864 people shot in the first 3 months. That's unbelievable. I mean, not that they're killed, but they're shot. Unbelievable. The number of total shooting victims, including those killed by gunfire, also continues to rise, with 706 through March 2021, a 43% increase. So far, the shootings, this is the shootings from Chicago, from the Chicago Tribune from 2012 all the way through to 2021, 864. Now look at 2016, 15, 16, and 17. See how high they were? What I'm pointing out here is when the administrations changed to bring in law, you began to see from 2017, when the last administration come in, it began to drop. When you have no law, the crime rises. This is why you're seeing it rise again today. Crime is going out of control. Something else that's not being brought out. Policemen killed in the line of duty. This year, right, there's been over 100 police officers who have died in the line of duty. Now, I'm going to separate these because some of them, like you'll see in this chart, if we leave the chart up for a couple minutes, Jeff, you'll see that COVID-19, 53 people have died from COVID-19. Now let's pull the actual lost their lives in actual pursuit of the duty. 4 were killed by assault. That means somebody jumped and beat them and killed them. Gunfire, 16 officers this year have been killed by gunfire. 16 in the first 3 months of this year. This is unbelievable. How come there's no talk about this? How about this one? Stabbed. 2 of them were stabbed. Then there was another vehicular assault. There's 2 categories there. If we leave that up for a second, you'll see struck by vehicle and struck by assault. Struck by vehicle means they may have been giving a ticket on the side of a highway and got hit by a car. The assault means someone deliberately used the car to run them over and kill them. So what you have here, you have 29 people killed in the direct line of duty performing services. That's police officers so far this year, indirectly being killed in the line of duty. Here's something else that I brought out that you never think about. The little canines. They've had 3 dogs killed. 1 by an automobile crash and 2 by gunfire. In other words, they sent the dog to go get the victim, the perpetrator, and 2 of the dogs got shot and killed. That's amazing. So what's going on? What are we looking at? We're looking at just a rise of violence going across in our nation. I'm going to come back into that toward the end of the program and talk about in the world. I'm going to show you how around the world also things are beginning to change. In the World Watch, Russia is expanding its military. Biden using the dangerous rhetoric against Putin. Have you heard the rhetoric he's using? It's unbelievable. I don't think he's ever going to get away with it. The Taliban also threatening Biden on the pullout, and the Taliban's also tied in with Russia because they supply them the military weapons and aid that they need. The Taliban has warned Biden, don't break the Trump deal or the U.S. troops will be held liable. The Taliban on Wednesday issued a stark warning on President Biden, vowing that U.S. troops still in Afghanistan past May 1st will be held liable and will face a fresh wave of attack. The Taliban also, their latest threat came in just hours before Biden formally announced the withdrawal of all American troops in Afghanistan by September 11th. Now, he's talking about September 11th being a Memorial Day with the bombings of the World Trade Center and the 2 buildings that collapsed. But the agreement was made, and the reason they haven't had the problems for the last year is because they signed an agreement with the United States that they would pull everything out of there by May 1st. Well, now the United States is saying, you're going back on your word, so they're saying all bets are off. You leave anybody over here after May 1st, we're going to kill them. That's what they're telling everybody. The news isn't reporting this, but that's exactly what's going on. This is reported from the Washington Times. Going on. He said the new withdrawal date ignores the May deadline in place with the former president who last year struck out a historic peace deal with the Taliban, informally known as the Doha Agreement. The Taliban officials say they expect Mr. Biden to abide by those terms. If not, they warned the 2,500 U.S. troops in Afghanistan will become targets. So we'll see what's going on. But this administration, doesn't matter what it's right or wrong, good or bad, it has to go against what the last administration did. Just look at the border, what's going on down there. So you don't check to see what's right, what's wrong. I'm just checking the idea of my time. I got to spend a lot of time here. But you don't check what's really going on. You just say, that's what he did, we're not doing that. And that's it. So you begin to change things. Well, you pay a price sometimes. Afghanistan says, we have won the war, America has lost. The Taliban believe that the victory is theirs, sitting over a cup of green tea, proclaims, we have won the war and America has lost. And that's the message being sent across Afghanistan. When we went in, it was a battle that we knew we couldn't finish. Russia was in Afghanistan for almost 20 years, and they couldn't stop what was going on over there. So this country has had 30, 40 years. It seemed like a lifetime of just nothing but war. That's what they are, and that's how they live. They've become accustomed to it, and now they figure they have war, and they're going to go back to the way it was. Here we are now with Russia. Are we entering in a new Cold War era? Russia is massing troops along the Ukraine border, sending shivers of unease through the West. The U.S. Department said it is absolutely concerned by the recent escalations in the aggression and the provocations in eastern Ukraine. It says we're now seeing the largest concentration of Russian forces on Ukraine's border since 2014. The truth is the rest of the world now is actually stepping up what it held off for the last 4 years because they knew the United States is mired in its own problems. They have a weak administration, and they can probably get away with pretty much whatever they want to get away with. That's what they're looking at going on. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Tuesday after flying to NATO's headquarters in Belgium, saying this is a real problem with this many troops on the border. This is a deep concern not only to Ukraine, but also to the United States. NATO tells Russia to stop the military buildup around Ukraine. So what is NATO going to do without the United States? The Secretary General has called on Russia to halt its military buildup around the Ukraine, describing it as unjustified, unexplained, and deeply concerning. Later on Tuesday, Moscow hit back, saying the deployments were a reaction to what it claimed were NATO's plans to move troops closer to Russia's borders in the Baltic and the Black Sea regions. What are we looking at here? Why am I going into all of this? Because everywhere around the world, what we're losing is peace. What you haven't had a problem with for 4 years in the previous administration now is all of a sudden all showing back up again. You pull the United States out of the power mix, and there's an evil force that moves in. Going on. Biden says Vladimir Putin is a killer who is devoid of a human soul. Wow. Can you believe that? It's almost, I'm serious, it's almost as if they're trying to instigate a war. And there's Russia, 40,000 troops lining up on the border, and the whole world knows what's going on. That's why when we saw this Remember the rumors back in the summer was there's 60,000 troops amassing on the borders of Canada by the United States, and nobody saw them. Remember those rumors that were out there? Believe me, they could see them. That's a lot of people. Here's 40,000, and the whole world's all upset. What's going on here? He says, to know Vladimir Putin, you think he's a killer? Without hesitation, the president says, yeah, he's definitely a killer. He has no human soul. Well, I'll tell you something. Vladimir Putin is not a dummy. He's not going to take this. And they're patient. They will wait for the right moment, and then they will strike. Biden agrees. Putin is a killer, he says, and he'll pay for meddling, according to Bloomberg. Putin will pay a price for the interference, Biden said in a long talk with the Russian leader. He said, I told him, I know you and you know me. And if I establish this occurred, then be prepared. Well, cross the line. Yeah, there you go. Unbelievable what you're seeing going on. But listen, this Cold War just continues to escalate. All it's going to take is just one bomb going off. And then you have just moved into the book of Revelation. We need to understand that's what's going on. And it's almost as if Satan has grabbed this man's mind and pushing him in to try to create a war. Look what else was said. Cold War heating up again. This is former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. By the way, she was a Democrat. She gave a terrifying warning during an interview on Fox News on Monday, claiming that a war with Russia is currently dangerously close. In the interview, she hinted at the use of nuclear weapons, invoking images that was disturbingly similar to prophetic descriptions of Gog and Magog. This is from a former U.S. congressperson or a senator. Unbelievable. She went on, she says, when asked about the rising conflict with Russia in the Ukraine, she said, it's moving very dangerously in a very dangerous direction, and the question for the American people is, are we willing to go to war with Russia on the behalf of the Ukraine? We need to understand that such a war will come at a cost beyond anything we can imagine, she said. And that's where it's at. So when you say you're going to pay a price, what are you willing to do to stop it? The Obama administration did nothing. They came in and they just took a part of the Crimea and they just washed over it, and nobody did a single thing about it. Said, don't do that again. Anyway, I wanted to bring all that out because this is continuing to get worse. Then, in the meantime, Russia brings back, stand clear of the Crimea. Russia on Tuesday warned the United States to ensure its warships stay well away from the Crimea for their own good, calling their deployment in the Black Sea provocative, designed to test Russian nerves. In other words, you're not going to push us, they said. You just stay away from our area. And of course, we did nothing about it. So can you see what's going on here? The whole world's heating up. The problems are getting worse and worse and worse. They said there's absolutely nothing American ships to be doing near our shores. This is purely a provocative action, they said. Provocative in the direct sense of the word. They are testing our strength and playing on our nerves. They will not succeed. And they believe that too. And they actually will believe that. Here's one more from the HQ. Are we preparing for war with Russia over the Ukraine? The Biden family's lucrative entanglements with the Ukraine seem to be drawing the United States closer to some kind of confrontation with Russia. CBS News said the Ukraine government claims that requests by the Ukrainian president Zelensky told with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin about the escalating conflicts in the eastern Ukraine have been ignored. Moscow denied receiving any requests from Kyiv and said over such talks. So we haven't heard anything. In other words, they're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and denying. So anyway, that's what we're looking at, what's going on there. So I did that. That's a lot of information I threw you out there. What I'm trying to do is show you how the instability in the homeland of the United States has kept us so focused on this that the rest of the world now is heating up to the point that it's going to be out of control. But the Bible said it would, and we're going to talk about that when we come back. Global unrest and the second seal of the book of Revelation. All right, let's take a break. I have a little short video here. His star still shines. Great little video, and I'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. Well, that was a lot of information I gave you in the first part of the program, probably more than I should have, so we may run a few minutes longer. It's really difficult to cover everything that's going on. And we didn't even talk about China today, or Iran, North Korea, Japan, all the surrounding countries that's being affected by all of this. We'll try to catch into all that as we go into it. But now let's put it together now. What's actually going on that God says is going to take place before Jesus Christ returns? The global unrest and the second seal. All right, let's go take a look at that. What is God talking about here? Revelation 6, verses 1 through 4. And I saw a lamb opened up one of the seals. And I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, and the four beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, there was a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow. And a crown was given to him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. Verse 3. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red. And power was given him that sat on to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword. Now we have accurately in the Bible, and most Christians can actually read this, this was talking about death and war, pretty much war that's taking place. But there's two parts of this story, all right? It's not just war. There's something else that happens before war. It says the second seal accomplishes his task in two phases. It says they went out a horse that was red, and power was given him that sat to take peace from the earth, and they should kill one another. First, power given him to take peace from the earth. So now, why was I going through that much time today in our program to go through the United States, to go through Russia, and talk all this going on? What is going on right now? You are right here. In less than 100 days, it is as if the peace in this globe, around the world, and in the United States, has just been ripped apart, and now you're taking it away from the earth. And second, it leads to kill one another. It will lead, what we're talking about here, when that peace is gone, when there is no more stability, when the rhetoric reaches the stage that nobody can handle it anymore, war will take place on a civil level and on a national level with the military. That's what we're looking at right now. So you have to ask the question, is it possible, and I don't know yet, we will see, but I want to introduce the question for you to think about. Could we be at the period of the time of the second seal? The beginning of the second seal. I don't know. We will see what comes. But anyway, you need to put that on your calendar. Now, just put a block around peace. So what does God say about peace? All right, let's talk about that. When peace is removed, it opens the door for hate. Now, isn't that what we're seeing in America right now? We're seeing peace is gone, and how much hatred is coming in. Back last week, we brought out there was a person who was writing a book, took a quote out, and praying for God to help her hate others. Asking God to help her hate. So when that peace is gone, hate is entering. Look at Mark 13. Now brother shall betray brother to death, and the father the son, the children shall rise up against their parents, and they shall cause them to be put to death. And they shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, and he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. I put in the little caption at the beginning. It's important that you understand what's going on so that you don't become a part or a victim of what's going on here. You have to hold on to what Jesus Christ is saying if you're going to get through this. Because it's saying parents, family, brother against brother, they're going to hate till they finally kill one another. They're going to put people in prison with one another. And they have nation fighting war against nation, what's going to be going on. That word peace, it comes from the Greek word 1515 irene. It was mentioned 92 times. It literally means peace, to join, one rest in quietness. One rest, in other words, is all peace. It's all rest. That's what it means. So what God's telling us in that verse in Revelation, that he's going to take peace away, the rest. There's to be no more quietness. God says he's going to wear out the elect. the time of Jacob's trouble. All of that's coming and it's at our doorstep. So what's interesting is that word is used, listen to this, every single book in the New Testament, that word is used, with the exception of 1 John and Acts 7. So wow, that's how important that is with peace. Acts 7:26 says it this way. And then the next day he showed himself unto them as he strove, and he would have set them at one. That word at one is the word peace. And so the word meaning to join or one rest is simply written as at one. Saying, sir, your brethren, why do you wrong one another? The word's all used in a relationship between man or man and God. So that word is used so that you and I can get along with one another or we can get along with God. If you want peace, to have true peace, you're going to have the relationship with God. Take a look at this now. The Global Peace Index, this is from the CISN, this is from the PR News site. It says, only one of 9 regions in the world improved in peacefulness in 2019. North America and Russia and Eurasia. Isn't it amazing by 2019, the United States was actually improving in its peace, but so was Russia and Eurasia. They had a connection, and in these interviews that you see that the United States was getting along with Russia. The world hated that. I know the lefts hated that while they were negotiating with China, talking about Russia was in the middle of everything. But there was no more, the strife was settling down. South America experienced the largest fall. It was the only region to record the deteriorations across all 3 GPI domains: safety, security, militarizations, and the ongoing conflicts. Now, why are we seeing this border increasing? It's because they've lost their peace down there, and they're fleeing to a place where they think they'll find peace. So you see what's going on around the world. It's so interactive, but you got to put the whole picture together. The death toll from terrorism, this is really important. The death toll from terrorism continued to decline, with the total deaths from terrorism fell to just over 8,000 in 2019. Now, just 8,000. But look what it was in 2015, when our policies in the Middle East was still anti-Israel to the most part. The 33,000 people were killed in the terrorism attacks. But when everything began to change, when our policy with Israel in the Middle East region changed, and they were having the peace accords, remember the Abraham Accord, things began to settle down. They're all getting together and beginning to work together again. It had reached the point of 8,000. This year it's going back up again because everything else is changing once again. So what I'm trying to do there, and didn't do too bad on time to be really, is I wanted to show you a comparison of administrations, a comparison of policies, and a comparison how they relate to biblical understanding and insight that God gave us. Also, I wanted to give you that when you break the policy of God's holy word, you're going to pay a price. And even if you repent of that sin, like slavery in America, the repercussions from it will carry on and may never be taken away until Jesus Christ returns. That's what we're looking at today. Anyway, there's a lot to cover in a small amount, so I hope you take the time, pray about this, go back and see this program one more time, but share it with everybody you know. All right, now let's begin to wrap it up. In the mail this particular week, we're going out with Choices by Ben Chapman out of Michigan. In the sermon I delivered last month that was offered on Accord, The 4 Chaplains, the story of sacrifice at sea. Now, that's a very uplifting, powerful little story. So if you haven't heard it yet, you need to get that DVD, take a look. Also, the COGMI YouTube channel. Jeff informed me this week that he's added 122 new videos to our YouTube channel. So I need you to pray about this, is that there were about 36 of them that they flagged, can't use them, in Cuba, North Korea, Iraq, and Syria. Isn't that amazing? Out of the 122 videos, about 36 of them won't be played in those countries. And I was told that we have actually had over 34 individual views of our videos on YouTube. So anyway, keep looking. That's a really strong number for the first 3 months of this year. So we have a chance to maybe go well over 100,000 views this year on YouTube. That's just YouTube. We got other channels too that they're out there, plus the website. So that's pretty strong. So God's been blessing us, and thanks to you helping get the word out. So we appreciate all your support and everything you do for helping us get the word out. Pentecost weekend, Syracuse, Indiana. Audrey and I will both be up there that weekend with the brethren. I've got all the information here, but I'm just going to put it all up there so that you can take it down. If you want to meet with everybody, there's the information where they're going to be at the Quality Inn, also where they have services each day on Saturday and Sunday while you're up there. So just freeze this and give Steve a call or send him an email so that you can make some reservations and let him know that you'll be there. I also received from him a complete schedule of their weekend. They start off Friday night. They'll be getting together for a nice fellowship dinner, and then it's going to go from that time on all the way through. Services are at 1 o'clock both days. On Saturday, we're doing a personal appearance campaign style sermon and trying to invite the general public in. So if you're anywhere near or around Syracuse, Indiana, why don't you come on by? Step in and spend the weekend with us. It'll be like a mini feast. So we'll be having a lot of fellowship, a lot of food. On Saturday night, they're going to have a sing-along of songs because that's a holy night also. And then we'll wrap up the weekend on Pentecost, and I'll be delivering the message on both days. On Saturday, it'll be a hard-hitting, warning message on the United States and the return of Jesus Christ. And then on Sunday will be a special Pentecost message to be delivered on the day of Pentecost. All righty, that's it. That's it for our sermon today, for our message today. All right, so our video today is Therefore Go to close our program. As we do each week, we like to close our program with a little uplifting video. And this one was really nice because it confirms the commission that God gave to you and I. Let's play that video. Well, that's it for our program today. Hopefully it's touched a nerve and put some thoughts to be able to begin to think about how fast the United States and this world is deteriorating. How much longer do we know? Do we have to go? Well, only God really knows. But it doesn't look like it can go on much, much longer. So anyway, thanks again for tuning in. Thanks again for supporting the work and telling everybody about our program. And don't forget, each and every week, share this program with everyone you know. They're going to love you for it. Or not. So next week, God be with you.